Hello and welcome back to the Podium Podcast. I'm Virgula.
I'm Karen.
Hi guys, I'm Frederick. Thanks for having me back on the podcast.
So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the first two races. Sorry that we couldn't be doing the episode separately and more frequently. We have all been busy with our own priorities, but in today's episode, we'll be talking about both the Bahrain Grand Prix and the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Let's get straight into 2022. Pre-season testing done, and Ferrari looked top. Now, Karen, coming into 2022, you're probably a very happy bunny. Frederick, on the other hand, you probably weren't. Let's just talk about Ferrari, how well they've done compared to everyone else.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, it's been a long time, really. Out of my whole time watching F1, all of these years, Ferrari have never been that good, really. They've certainly never been top for that long. Like maybe part of a season they've been top, but I think this season looks promising, even though we've had two races. I think this season looks like it's going to be in favour of Ferrari, even though it's only been two races. So yeah, that was really good to see because, like I said, the whole time I watched F1, it's never been the case. But as people say, victory's always much sweeter. When you go through like the hard times of like not winning, you go through the lows, but then the highs feel so much better if you watch it. Yeah, hope we can keep it up, really.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, I'm actually quite happy for Ferrari just because I don't want to see Max Verstappen win. But yeah, I mean, especially for Leclerc, I think the past two seasons he hasn't been like really performing, I don't think, and he's sort of been foreshadowed by his teammate, I think, like Sainz and Vettel. But I think he's sort of really showed his like potential now in a car that obviously he really likes, and Ferrari as a team like as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy just because Verstappen isn't winning. However, he did win in Saudi, but it was a very exciting race in the end.
We'll come on to Saudi later, but I think that 2022 is going to be a battle between Red Bull and Ferrari. How much of a chance do you think Red Bull have? Because for me, Ferrari looked like the dominant team, but I think Red Bull still got cards up their sleeve to play.
Well, yeah, I think it's obviously going to be some form of a battle, but I don't think personally it's going to be as close as last season. I don't think it will be as close as last season. Like as in, the fight between Max Verstappen and Hamilton for first place. I don't think it's going to be that much. I think Ferrari will be comfortably ahead. I think, anyway.
I think as a team, Ferrari are better. I think Sainz and Leclerc. I think as a team that those two are probably better than Perez and Verstappen as a team, just because Perez doesn't really perform that much. However, in Saudi, obviously, he was really unlucky with the safety car. But yeah, I think Ferrari as a team, they probably might just edge it, but I think it will be close. I think it will be.
Karen, you're saying that it won't be a very close title fight, but looking at the past two races, it's been so close between, Bahrain excluded with Verstappen DNFing, but in Saudi Arabia, they are racing each other right to the line. And it shows that it's going to be a hard battle between both of them. But for me, I think Ferrari
but I think as the season goes on, I think it will spread out more. Like if you look at last season, it was like more spread out, and then it became quite close. Like initially, Max Verstappen was winning, and it looked quite clear that he was going to win, and then it became really close at the end. So I don't think it can sustain that level of competitiveness throughout the whole season. I think something's got to change, and I think it will change. So
also I think it'll be interesting to see like the different tracks and how different teams perform on different tracks. I think as you go through the season, you'll see some of the shorter tracks and some of the longer tracks, or more corners or less corners. They'll be more in favour of other teams. So I think that'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah, it'll also be good with it'll be good with the 2022 cars as well coming in, because now the teams and drivers both have to adapt their setups for each track. So the 2022 cars also give us good problems and bad problems, as we've seen in testing. It gives us good racing, which we saw in both races, and it gives us porpoising, which I think Mercedes has really been struggling. Hence why, Lewis Hamilton out in Q1 in Saudi Arabia, George Russell only managing like 9th position in quali. Mercedes just a shambles at the moment, and something definitely needs to change.
Yeah,
but
can't disagree with that.
Yeah, but I think they will change though. It's very surprising to see that team doing so badly. So I don't think they're going to be that low for all the time. I mean, to be honest, you always get teams that will start off really bad and they'll have like big problems. But I think they're one of the teams that will improve 100% because they were top last season. So for them to do this badly now,
last 8.
Yeah, I know.
Quite astonishing.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as good as Ferrari, but it's not bad. But yeah, I mean, also one thing I wanted to talk about was like aesthetically, the Ferrari is just so much better than all the other cars, in my opinion. It might be because I'm being biased, but I really like the darker shade of red, and I really like the look of the front nose. It's much sharper than the other cars. To be honest, the older F1 cars always had like a sharper nose, and I feel like these new cars, they look like Indy cars a lot because the nose is much higher as well, and they've got the like the mud flaps as well. So I think it's the most F1 looking car there, and I think it looks quite good actually.
Yeah, I mean, it does look good to Ferrari as well, especially we saw, the Ferrari adapting to 2022 regulations, and it paid off, coming into qualifying. Most of us did have some sort of, feeling in the mind that Ferrari are going to do well coming into 2022, and it proved, for Charles Leclerc on pole. It was a great day for Ferrari. You're probably happy, Karen, but, Mercedes, what a shock it was. How did you feel, Frederick, about that?
Yeah, I mean, going into the season in Bahrain, I wasn't really, normally Mercedes sort of sandbag testing, but this time it obviously didn't come true, and they were genuinely struggling for pace. And I think Hamilton, like, sort of complaining about downforce, porpoising, so many different amenities of the car just wasn't working for Mercedes, and I'm not sure how long it will take for them to turn it around, but I don't think it will be the whole season. I don't think they'll struggle the whole season. I think they will have some good races and some really bad races. Obviously seeing that with McLaren, I don't know how you feel about McLaren at the moment, but
I was
they're not really doing brilliantly.
Devastated. Looking at, Bahrain Grand Prix itself, quite an interesting one with the battles between, Red Bull and Ferrari, especially, with at the later stages when Verstappen was getting his teeth into trying to overtake Leclerc, but Leclerc just looked miles ahead of everyone, literally and physically. He was like in control of the race, and it showed, I think, the dominance that Ferrari will have. But for the Mercedes powered cars, it was a hell of a race for them, in a bad way. McLaren, Williams, Mercedes, just shocking.
I mean, I was gonna say, you said hell of a race.
Yeah, I'm in a bad way.
Most people don't use that in bad sense, but
I know. But but also another point to talk about is Haas, out of nowhere, coming in at P5 with Kevin Magnussen, not even, thinking of racing in F1 about 11 days before, then getting the call. Just incredible for Haas. And it shows what an achievement they've come from scoring no points in 2020 and 2021 to scoring, I don't know how many, but quite a lot. How do you feel about that, guys?
Yeah, so I think over this season, I think Haas have really been the standout team for me this season. I think Magnussen especially, what a start, coming in 11 days before, I think you said there, and obviously complaining of neck problems, which I don't blame him, because he's literally got told to be in that car really short notice, had no real proper training where they like train their necks and stuff, especially to be an F1 driver. And I think it's just unbelievable the story that Haas have been through, especially after last season, and probably one of the worst seasons an F1 team has had, losing their driver before the season starts. And I think they deserve it, to be honest, this season. And hopefully Magnussen and Schumacher can keep it up.
Yeah, definitely. It was an incredible achievement. I think it was like, 2 years without a single point, and for all the Haas staff and personnel for the team just to keep on going, traveling all around the world, doing, the same things week in, week out when, there is no outcome out of it. It's just that I give that my hat to them. That's hard work. And so now,
sorry. You're making it sound really, really dramatic and really, really grim. You got to remember,
well, it is.
they're an F1 team. They've got millions and millions of pounds. Everyone working there is like mega rich. They're making millions of pounds every year. And you're like saying, they're putting in all the hours. There are people with really horrible jobs, and you're saying that that's bad.
Haas will nearly be bankrupt. They had to cut a lot of team personnel just to provide themselves.
Yeah, but it's not exactly a grim job, is it?
No,
you're in a Formula One crew. That's not exactly a bad job.
When you're doing something, when there is no outcome, it's hard.
Yeah, I think Veer's saying, like, also being an F1 team, you're there to win. You're not there to lose.
Yeah, but like, let's be honest.
I think that's why. Well, no, we're not saying they're going to win, but I think when you're looking at a team like Haas, who've lost their sponsor, lost their driver, and brought in a new driver who had no training coming into the season, and I think after all they've had and all the troubles they've had, I think they've been really good, especially because you don't want to work in a team where they're not winning and the environment is not good. Like you want to do decent, and especially getting the points. So
yeah. So the team definitely deserve it after all those years. So for me, also Magnussen coming back in after what seemed like a couple of years out of the sport is just incredible. But moving on to
also 1 second. About like Mazepin leaving and stuff. Do you have any thoughts on, obviously with the Ukraine-Russia war, Magnussen's, sorry, what am I talking about? Mazepin's dad is getting the sanctions and stuff. And obviously he's been told to leave, and he's starting this new charity to help Russian, sports people, and athletes and stuff. And now he's threatened to stop the payments for Haas, the support. What do you think about that?
Well, I believe Uralkali, the company that Haas was being sponsored by, Mazepin's dad's company I'm talking about, has is apparently suing Haas because Haas has still got a deal until 2024 or 2023 with the sponsor, but Haas have already taken the money. And so now Uralkali are suing them. So obviously that's not a good start. But I'm not trying to get political here about the Ukraine-Russia thing. But for me, with the world at this current state, with all the other, international sporting boards taking out, Belarusian and Russian athletes, I mean, F1 had to follow suit, or there'll be huge backlash from the public. So for me, it was already a done deal with Mazepin going out. But does he deserve to be out? That's another question for another day.
I don't want to get into it again, and let's get Frederick's opinion on this as well. But personally, the reason why he's in F1, and you'll agree with me because you said this before, is because of his dad. And look how his dad made money. Look how his dad got into the sport. So, yeah.
I mean, you can also argue he didn't deserve to be in F1 in the first place. So,
well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter, does it? Well. It's it's equaled it out, if you get what I mean.
That's true. But as a Russian, Belarusian athlete, it must be hard mentally and physically to not do the sport that you love.
Yeah, obviously,
Because
but
of
I don't really feel for him. The people I feel for are the Olympians, because generally Olympians aren't that wealthy. They're just like genuinely people that are just good at sport and, train for
yeah,
the
that's
Olympics.
true.
So
But I mean, even in F1 last season, Mazepin wasn't allowed to, represent Russia because Russia
Yeah.
was being
yeah,
banned
again,
from.
that's kind of like a first world problem. Like it's an F1 team. It's in Formula One.
I
All
just
right,
want to
moving
know
on.
though. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I just want to know one question.
Yeah.
What do you think your view on the Bahrain, and do you think there was enough hype around the first race, Viet and Curran? What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think so. I think yeah, I think there was enough hype about it, to be honest. And I think some people who didn't watch last season are now watching F1 because of what happened, obviously in the last season. So I think F1's like dodgy tactics, I'll say, have gained them
Yeah,
a few followers, I think.
I just want to say one point also.
Yeah,
I think the past week or so, obviously, like with the stuff around Saudi Arabia and the explosions, I think the
yeah,
sport have sort of like been in a bit of a bad light recently,
yeah,
don't you think?
Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
But going back to a question about the hype around the first race of the season. You know, after last season, there was a load of people coming in to watch. This season, and F1 played their cards right. They kept on promoting new season, new cars, new regulations, new everything, and how it should spice up the grid, and it definitely has. With Ferrari being on top. And the racing has also matched the hype as well for me. But yeah, definitely going into Saudi Arabia. Already, Saudi Arabia, racing in Saudi Arabia is already a bit dodgy. But you know what? At the end of the day, cash is king, as Lewis Hamilton said in F1. And that's a sad reality. But when those missiles went off, I think that there was a bit of concern for not just F1 but for sport altogether. Hosting in those countries where there are threat to attacks. On a frequent basis, and there's so many different places F1 could race at. Malaysia for one, Argentina for another. But it's just a bit sad that they're racing at Saudi Arabia and places like Qatar and Bahrain, even though the
Yeah,
Bahrain track's quite nice, but it is what it is. C'est la vie. What can
yeah,
I say?
yeah. Also, one thing I wanted to get your thoughts on is like generally in F1, as we see F1 progressing, it's quite a common theme that supercars and like fast road cars have always kind of taken after Formula One. Like initially, way back in the 80s, they used to have V12s, and then when they moved out into automatic, then supercars became like automatic, and then they went into V10s where you had the likes of the E60 M5, Carrera GT, Huracan, Gallardo, all of those cars. But I wanted to talk about like generally an F1 and like motorsport, because a lot of people have like recently, or not recently, but in the last few years have come out of Formula E, and now new manufacturers like obviously Porsche going into Formula E, and also I've heard that Maserati are now in 2023 going to go into Formula E. So like, what do you think? Do you think Formula E is going to die off and like Formula One's going to exist? Because like, to be honest, when Formula E started, people were saying Formula One was going to die.
Um, I'll answer that first. For me, Formula E is kind of like the second option for sports cars and sports manufacturers that don't want to start, going right into the deep end with sport, motorsport, motor racing. So Formula E is a great platform for people like Porsche, Maserati to do well and then excel into Formula One. So I
No,
wouldn't
so
be
I
surprised.
didn't mean it like that. I think you misunderstood. What I meant to say was
Oh, sorry.
is like about how like the road cars. What I'm trying to say is, generally teams have gone into Formula One to either help or like aid their road cars,
Yeah, yeah.
or they've either done it just as like just for money. And so what I'm trying to say is like if you put the teams aside, which ones are in F1, which ones are in Formula One, and which ones are in Formula E, like teams have backed out of Formula E, like Audi and BMW, and like that doesn't really happen in F1. Like big teams like that don't just like, you don't see Ferrari just leaving, you don't see Mercedes leaving or McLaren leaving. So like what I'm trying to say is that I think Formula E was supposed to be like the future, and Audi, BMW, they got into Formula E because they thought it'd be beneficial for their cars, because they thought all road cars were going to become electric. And then when they realized that it was like a failure, then they all backed out.
Yeah, I mean, Formula E was supposed to be one, the thing to excel and beat F1, but it definitely hasn't. Um, yeah, for me, I don't know really how to answer that, because maybe down to money. That'd probably be my answer. Money is, well, the thing that makes the world go around. So for me, that's a hard question to ask, Karen, but I don't really have an answer for that. But moving on to, oh, sorry, Frederick, if you wanted to say something on that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I don't really have anything to say on that.
All right, so let's talk about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. On track action. Perez, first ever pole, which is amazing. I'm so happy to see him on pole. But before we get into that, I think we need to talk about Mick Schumacher's huge accident. What did you guys think about it? Seeing him go into that wall at 33G. And, for me, when he was sitting there in the car and wasn't getting out, that got me a bit worried. And it shows how dangerous the track is nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I think Saudi obviously going into the race, we know it's a street circuit. We know you're going to get fast corners. And I think what was it? I think he just hit the curb, didn't he? And then he just spun out.
The curb is very like triangle-like. And I think he tried just to correct the oversteer and he lost it. So
he literally just touched the curb and spun into the wall on the left, and then just like went across the track. And then what was it? The whole of the car, back of the car, just left him, I think, didn't it? Split.
Not really, to be honest. It didn't really split. It kind of just bits of the rear fell off. Like
I know you, Karen, didn't think it was a big crash.
No, I didn't think so. Like, I think people are overreacting a bit, because let's be honest, the modern F1 cars are really quite safe. And whilst I understand it was a high speed crash, the top speed of a Formula One car, like if you drove it at top speed, 220, whatever it is, and you crashed into a wall, that carbon fiber tub chassis will not break. Like it won't break. And so physically, what?
So you're going 220 miles per hour.
Yes, it won't.
In a carbon chassis, it wouldn't
break. If he did that same crash at full speed, it would not have. Maybe if he hit it at a certain angle, like if he went straight on at full speed, then it would have. But like it wouldn't have cracked the chassis.
But we saw with Grosjean.
Yeah.
The
whole car split in half.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the car split. No,
it
didn't. If you
look,
I'm talking. Look, the thing is, you've got a very, what's the word for it? Motorsport view of what a chassis is like. I'm talking about that. It's hard to explain, but like this is where it separates like the motorsport fans from the actual like petrol heads. The thing is, I don't think you guys really know what a proper chassis is. So in a car like a supercar or a motorsport car, the actual chassis is not the whole underside of the car. It's literally only the bit where the person sits. It's the bit between the front and the rear bulkhead. So it literally, all it does is protect the driver. The chassis is not the whole thing underneath the car. So the engine can come out, the wheels can fall off, the front splitter, bumper, everything, crumple zones, like it can all come off. But the actual like bare chassis of it, that won't break, because you've got the whole front part or the rear part, the wheels of the car that will first of all that will take the impact and most of like it would dissipate most of the force, first of all. And second of all, it's super strong that, especially in a crash like that, where all he's done is really like oversteered because he's hit the curb and he's spun, he's absolutely fine. And to be honest, the way it's a Formula One car, like if you did that in a road car, then fair enough, because you literally in a road car, you just sit in a seat and there's tons of space around you. But he's in a Formula One car. It's literally like, he fits like a glove in there. There's not much room to move around in. He's got a halo. There's not much room. He's in a carbon tub. I thought he was fine. I think everyone was overreacting.
The crash was sort of reminded me of like Stroll and Verstappen in Azerbaijan. I think it was Baku. There was sort of like that sort of movement into the wall and then the car spinning. Obviously not at the pace that Schumacher did, but I thought it was a big crash. Obviously, Curran, you didn't think it was. I think Veer, you did think it was a big crash. So
I
thought, to be fair, obviously it's not a small crash, but I didn't think it was a huge crash. I think people were overreacting a bit too much. I know the photos look really bad, but what you guys got to remember is that the modern cars are massive. They're absolutely huge. So like, so much of the car can fall off, but the chassis will still be intact, and that's what's keeping him safe at the end of the day. And to be honest, I didn't think it was likely that he would have like any serious concussion. I think he did have like some form of concussion or something like that, but it didn't look like he'd be paralyzed or anything serious, like a proper concussion or a long coma or something. I think it was quite clear for me anyway. I think a lot of people probably didn't know about that, but yeah. And you can actually see when they lift the car up, it's literally falling apart, but that last, whatever it is, 30% of the car, whilst it is small, that's the actual chassis. So that's the main bit keeping him safe, and that's all that matters really, as long as that's intact.
Yeah, but I mean, if you take it back to Bahrain 2020, when Grosjean, hit the barrier, you could just see the car.
Yeah, I know, but that's a different situation, isn't it? Because
I'm just saying
the main danger there was him being trapped in the car. That was the main danger. It wasn't the fact that he hit it so fast, because it wasn't that fast. The main danger was him being trapped in there.
It was quite fast. He was literally going side by side with Kvyat.
Yeah, but I swear it was in like the warm-up lap or something, or the safety car.
Warm-up lap.
It was the first lap.
Yeah, but wasn't it when? Yeah, exactly. So they were all like close together. They weren't going flat out.
That makes it even more dangerous.
Yes.
Well, no, because no other cars were like really involved.
Well, no, all the cars.
How we crashed?
It's the first lap.
Karen, have you seen the crash?
Yeah, of course I have. I watched the whole race.
This guy didn't watch a race.
I did, but like, okay, okay.
Anyway,
maybe my memory of it isn't that good. But it wasn't that fast. How fast was it? I'm gonna look up speed.
Anyway,
it was not 170. It was no. Yeah, it was 100. It was 119 miles an hour. 190.
All right, doesn't matter. Moving on.
I swear the majority of people have done that speed on the public road.
Okay.
Guarantee.
Anyway. Okay.
And the reason why the car looked so bad then was because it caught fire. So fair play. But like,
okay,
the other crash was like, it wasn't even fire, and so it was fine.
I just want to like say something about moving on now, because we've been talking about that quite long. But going on to the Perez incident with the safety car coming out, what do you think, Veer, about that? When you were watching that race, what did you think? What do you feel towards Perez?
So you talk about when Sainz was coming out of the pits and Perez kind of overtook him. Yeah, that incident.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, it was quite clear that Sainz was ahead. Coming out the pit lane, but it was so devastating for Perez, just to drop on first, and he was in control of that race. It was such a fall from grace when Leclerc was going to pit, and then he didn't, but, Red Bull still went in, and Latifi's, crash, which was
No,
Oh my
there's just
God.
something. There's something
Latifi
about
always
Latifi and
crashes.
safety.
Beck, I was
at the
going to
wrong
say
point.
that's a bad crash.
He always crashes at the wrong point. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, so I just want to talk about the final laps of the race. I think we were all out of our seats watching Verstappen, Leclerc, and obviously we saw that it took about, I think it was 8 laps for Verstappen to get past Leclerc, and he found out that the DRS, obviously he had to stay back, wait for the last corner, and then he could overtake Leclerc on the straight with the DRS. But yeah, what were your guys' thoughts on those final moments of the race?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh.
Go on, Vic. You can go.
Yeah, definitely. It was one to watch, definitely. Both of them going head to head. Last couple of laps, full push. But it was funny for the DRS. Shenanigans. Both of them locking up because they both want DRS. But it shows also that maybe there is a problem with DRS. People are, especially last year, 2021, when Verstappen, went into the back of Hamilton. It does. Oh no, sorry. Hamilton went into the back of Verstappen. Sorry, got my facts wrong there. But I think the DRS needs to change definitely. But anyway, moving on. But yeah, it was great racing. Verstappen for me, both of them deserved the win, but Verstappen just edged it out a bit more. But yeah, definitely a great finale, and hopefully we'll carry that on in Australia with 4 DRS zones, 4, which is but unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it should be
So
good.
for a second, the way you said, hopefully we'll carry that on, I thought you were a Red Bull supporter for a second. I was like, have I missed something? Like,
yeah.
Everyone's going to be up at 6 a.m. on Saturday
Definitely.
watching the
yeah, of course. I mean, I'm up at 6 anyway. So.
Australian GP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Anyway, that's going to be the end for it today. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and goodbye.